Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to GMODISM Total Nerdry channel. We're back in StarMade for another tutorial that is highly needed. It is so that StarMade has had some updates, namely QuickFire has been introduced. This changes the game's weapons, armor and energy and a lot stuff like that. This tutorial is a brief, simple tutorial that tells you how to make a basic ship. But it also covers the changes that were introduced so that more experienced player should have good use of this little tutorial. For new players, I should first mention that there is this little menu that tells you the basic controls if you click the / button, or just look in-game settings what you want to bind it to. Might be useful. You can use shift and scroll to move scroll in and out from your character. This is very useful. In any case, you will spend most of your time in build mode, of course, and if you press I, you have an inventory. When I set up the server, I selected that creative mode should be activated. So I have creative mode. You can activate it by commands too if you're an admin. In any case, here we find a lot of blocks, which is nice and all, and we need some basic blocks to make a ship. First of all, you just find the ship cores. You need ship cores to build a ship, but you don't need to take it in your inventory here. In any case, we should add some basic blocks, thrusters, cameras, and then we have hull. This is the hull, the gray basic armor it's called, or basic armor. We also have standard armor here. And we also have advanced armor. I'll tell you a little bit more about them soon. Then what we also need to grab from this menu is the power generating blocks, power reactors, reactor power rather, and reactor stabilizer. When you're in your character mode, you click X to create a new ship and then name it to something sensible. And by pressing R, you can get into the ship core. The ship core is basically the control or access point of the ship. If you click Z, you can switch to flight mode and build mode. I like to make my ships be a little seat. So select some decorative block there, and then you can, by holding Control and scroll, you can switch between the different orientations. That's the fastest way to do it. Then you can see you have this build mode, which you access by left control. And here we have a lot of useful things. You can see this little arrow pointing in the middle of the block. This is the direction of the ship. Don't mess up the direction of your ship, because if you do, you'll not know. It won't work very well. Anyways, here you can select up a symmetry plane by doing this. And that's something you should have. Symmetry plane saves time. We also have, you can copy and paste stuff, you can save selections and copy selection, stuff like that. You can replace and you can fill, and there is also stuff called build helpers. You can see I just set up a little circle here of a radius of 8, and if I check this little box here under circle, you see restrict building to helper. And if I do this, I can take my brush and I can, when I hold control here, I can just scroll to increase the numbers. And when I just place, blocks like this, they will automatically be filled in the helper. So the helper is pretty useful. You can use Ctrl Z as well to redo or undo things or blocks you place down here. I don't want to use the build helper, but at least I've shown it to you now. So what else do we have here? We have also something called remove mode. It's good to know if you want to see when you're removing blocks. If you have like a larger brush, it's easier to see what blocks you remove if you have the remove mode in. Otherwise it will look like this, and they're basically inverted. So when you remove stuff, use remove mode. It's much simpler. Then you can also have lighten mode to light everything up if you're building really dark, and you have some different settings there you can use. The hotbar here with all my blocks set up. I can save this layout as A, and now if ever I want to have this setup of block in my inventory by default, I can just load this. Something that also will save you time is you can right-click these numbers and they will turn back to 1. Fantastic. In any case, this is all confusing, so just minimize all this until you get the hang of the basic stuff. Fantastic. Now we should build a little hull here. And of course, using this brush size here, we can easily make some nice platforms here. And I won't be, making any complex, like this ship won't look nice, it's just an example thing. But we had some changes here in how armor works in general in StarMade. So this little tip I will help you with now will be useful to all players. All of the block have different stats, like mass and armor and stuff like that. Before, heavy armor or advanced armor was a pretty heavy block, but it isn't really anymore. What's heavy in StarMade are systems, like weapon barrels is heavy. Computers not as heavy, but system blocks here we have like reactors. Of course, hull or the standard armor is very light. The advanced armor is heavy, but what's really heavy, like for example, like missile tubes, damaged beam modules, like the weapons is what is heavy. So that's something to keep in mind. Because before it was hard to use these nice armor blocks too much because the ship went too heavy, so now systems are the most heavy piece of equipment there is there. Same goes for thrusters. They were really light before, now they weigh a little bit. In any case, when we're talking about like armor here, if you looked at the stats carefully here, you could see that the basic armor has the most health points. The hull or the inside of the ship, you actually want to have a layer of nice basic armor. You shouldn't build your entire ship just out of standard armor anymore. You actually need some of these. But these are really light and they also give a lot of health points, so there's no reason to not use them. If you want to use armor, you should have a layer of armor outside of the hull. Like this, especially on, exposed pieces like this. And if you wonder, we also had something called advanced armor. Before, people used to build ships entirely out of advanced armor, and that was nice and all. This changed. Advanced armor is now completely different from what it was before. Advanced armor has now a lot of armor points. The advanced armor does not give very good health points or protection in general by itself. Advanced armor nowadays is more useful to strengthen or reinforce and back up regular armor. So if I would want to make this armor piece really strong, I could go in here and I could back up this layer here with advanced armor and use the advanced armor as reinforcement. This is, from what I understood, the best use of advanced armor in game mechanic wise. Also, of course, you want windows. There is glass here. Glass is, glass is a little bit brittle. If you want to use something more sturdy, it has health points, of course, but no armor here. Of course, it's more heavy as well, but we have the advanced armor is usually used for windshields and windows in ships. So let's add the little symbolic window here. Thrusters are not as effective as they were before, so you might need more of them than you had to have before to get the same speeds. I'll just add a bunch of thrusters here. If you want to have some nice colored lights, you can, let's add a little green cabin light here. Let's take the core by C and connect it up by V. V is an interesting way to connect up stuff. By doing this, if we go to flight mode and scroll out with shifter, you can see the engines now glow green. This is a cool little trick to show that you know some basic stuff in StarMade. You can make your engines glow whatever color you want. Okay, so we have power now. Reactor power. And Reactor is not, if you have a few blocks here, you can see stabilization is only 55%. It's best to get this to 100. By doing this, we have stabilizers. Stabilizers can be placed wherever. They can be placed basically on the reactor, just, anywhere. To get some protection and not so much damage to your ship, you'd usually want to have some shields. Even though armor has become more effective than it was before, shields is still something most people want to have. You'll need at least one shield generator, but you don't want them in separate locations. The shield generator should only be one. And for this little ship I make a basic little shield of 2 blocks shield generators. Very, small little shield there. And the more you have, the bigger the shield will also be. Then we can have shield capacitors. We can place them wherever we want here. And having shield capacitors will make our shields bigger. It's discharging because it's not powerful enough. You want to keep an eye out for the error messages you get, because it usually tells you what the issue with your ship is, if you have an issue. Now we have the core view, and the core view is nice to have. You want a good core view, but you also might want to have a decent little camera. So we'll add a little camera here, and by the arrow keys you can shift to different cameras. And actually you can have the camera wherever, and you can click P, and then you can adjust the cockpit of where you want the camera to be, and you can set it in the instructions you see in the lower left corner. Then we have these little blocks, storage. We want to add some storage. Then we have something called a rail docker. We want a rail docker. And then we have rails. Now, the most popular way to make docking is something called Universal Standard Dock. Oh, Ctrl-Z to Ctrl-C. Let's remove that. Unset our symmetry mode, because we only want one little docking space here. Then, down here, we have the arrow of the docker pointing inwards, like that. And then we also have a rail that should be also pointing inwards. They're pointing to each other. And this makes it so that other things can dock to your ship and you can dock to them. Fantastic. Now, you can use everything on your ship, but if you want someone in your faction in StarMade to be able to dock to your ship, you'll need to have a little faction module beside or connected to the rail here. So now a faction member can also join. Now you also might make it so that the faction members should be able to open the door here. And if we want to do that, we go in here and we find the activator, and we also go to the button slot here. They are on different places for some reason. We put an activator there, and then we press a small one out here. Now the size of them doesn't really matter. We just can use this one to... We connect them up to each other by C and V, and they're like bound. Fantastic. In any case, you also want doors. There are some different types of doors: blast doors, force fields, regular doors, glass doors. They all do the same. Blast doors is kind of a little bit tougher, so that's probably what we want to use. We can select this thing and hook up these door pieces. We can even, if we have this selected, we can build like doors and they will automatically get connected up. Now we can activate and deactivate this door. Of course you can open the door directly, but if your faction members want to use it, they'll need to use the buttons. Depends on the permission you set on your ship. And about that, permissions on your ship, we have something called a faction module. You will want a faction module on your ship. And you need to be in a faction. To be in a faction, you click H, and here you see faction, faction, faction. Create faction. Fantastic. Now we are in a faction, and we enter faction signature. There we go. And here we can set what rank the structure is. If you set it to this one, it's only the owner of the structure. And here is the founder in the faction. And here is only the owner. Let's just set it open like that. In any case, if you don't have a faction modules on your stuff will be much easier to steal. If they are put into a faction, if they are officially like in a faction, your build is somewhat protected. So it's good to have it, if you don't want it to get stolen. Here we also have a little gravity unit. Now you'll need to make sure this arrow points downwards. And if you do, you can just select it everywhere. If you activate this and go outside of your ship, like this, and we activate it, now we are inside the gravity field of this ship. Now I will only cover this a little bit briefly, because it is a science, but here we have something called reactor conduits. And here we have chambers, reactor chambers. Faster than light chamber, mobility chamber, lots of chambers. And what you basically do is you take a conduit somewhere on your reactor and you connect it up to a mobility or whatever chamber. And the larger your reactor is, the larger modules of chambers you need. And it will tell you when it's functional size. If we click R on the reactor, we can go into this little menu. And here we can see we have some points we can dish out here. And if I select specify chamber, we can now select something we want here. Let's set this to be turn rate. Let's make it turn faster. And you can have a lot of different chambers. And if you want higher levels, you can even connect a conduit from a chamber and select another chamber on top of that. All chambers doesn't have like second stages of any kind. This is just turn rate, which we can level up. However, if we instead select thrust blast, for example, and select OK, we can actually select this to, it should be stronger, charge faster, or you should be able to have multiple charges. You know, you can do like that. In any case, if we want to revert it, you can do like that, specify chamber, select it to turn rate again, and then we can level it up to make it stronger. Fantastic. So we get rid of that. And you'll have to look for yourself what the different chambers offer, but it's basically a lot. If you get in a really weird direction, you can always, you know, slow down by shift by default here. Okay, then we click C, and it will align itself to galactic north or something. If you spin too much sideways like this, you can click the V button to just stop turning or spinning. Fantastic to know. In any case, we talked about the storage. Here we have a storage, and by selecting C, we can expand this storage space by pressing down these little storage spaces. This will be filled with blocks. If we go into the storage and we go out from creative mode, you can, for example, we can drag some stuff in here. Yes, actually, now they had to use a little bit of one of the storage spaces we had. So they're pretty efficient, but you know, here's the storage. Fantastic. And if you have a ship, you of course want some nice utility tools, especially if this is your starter ship. So let's go back to creative. Now, what do we have? We have something called a salvage module or salvage computer. We have a salvage computer and a salvage module. This is basically a cannon that sucks in asteroids or stuff like that. So we press down the computer and we select it by C, and then we can place down some of these. So this little beam here, they sit in one block, so they're actually officially just one output. But if we want several output, we need to make them, you know, separated. Just so you know, that's how they work. But if we have this little thing here, if we go into the ship and click G, you have a salvage computer, and now you can salvage stuff if this, you know, can be salvaged. Now I happen to, you know, own this place and it doesn't have a shield, so I can just salvage it. But if it's an enemy, you can definitely not salvage it. Yep. And these don't get destroyed. These get into your inventory. If you want them to not be into your inventory, you select the salvage computer and you select the storage module. And then when we go here again, and we salvage, and then when we go into the storage here, you can see we actually have the blocks inside of here instead of our personal inventory. So that's good to know. Another little useful block you can have is a Bobby AI. If you want ships to maneuver by themselves, you have this little AI module here. And you tell it if it's a turret or if it's a ship, and if it's active or not. If you control it, it can't be active. So you just need one of this to have basically make it maneuver by itself. And for the ship in general, the tab, you can reach this little menu where you can go to a lot of different stuff like ship. We can go to thrusters, and here we can configure how much should be rotating, how much of the force in percent should be directed to forwards and backwards and stuff like that. And you can even, turn off it automatically stopping when you leave it. That's, smart to have active. So that's a good thing to know. You can also go to the block in question, thrusters, and manage it from there. But from this little tab menu, you can reach a lot of things that might be very useful, like the reactor or weapons. About weapons, if we click G, we can go directly into weapons. All ships have a jump drive, a scanner, you can just drag them down here, a jump drive and a scanner, and of course the rail docker we placed, and an activation beam to activate buttons. So basically, if we have this little jump drive, we need to load it, and we can then right click and jump far away. If we choose to upgrade our reactor, we can make this jump drive a lot more faster and a lot more efficient. We also have a scanner computer that can scan for targets in the area, as well as hidden targets with cloak and stuff. If you upgrade the scanner, it will be better. With this little docking beam, we can dock to any rail, and the rail is of course the same thing by the side. If our ships have the same configuration as we have, we can dock to them, like if they use USD, as this is called. However, I just realized this little button is actually sticking out, so it might actually not be able to dock. Just remove that. If you hold Control and select by middle mouse, you will get the block active in the inventory slot. So to make a flush button, of course, we just select this one and we connect up these to each other. Okay, now we can dock to stuff. So even though a block may look flat, everything has full one block collision when it's in terms of other ships. So that's something you'll really need to know. And here we also have a lot of different blocks here. We won't really cover in detail, of course, but there is something called a transporter. And if you don't find a block very easily, you can just search for it here. Look, a transporter and a module. To make a transporter, you'll need to have a transporter block here, and then you'll need to have a module like that, and it should be connected up like this. If you go into this menu, you can select another transporter and basically teleport yourself by this. It's really handy to, get between places that takes a long time to walk or fly. So you can teleport yourself between your own structures as well. Alright, we won't look through all of it, of course. I'm really trying to keep this tutorial short and concise, but I want to explain as much as possible for you, so I hope we get something in the middle. This is a really basic medical cabinet. Spawn one. If you're hurt, go to it, click R like this, and you're healed. Fantastic. You're healed a bit. There are some different interesting blocks here I really want to show here, and that is of course the tractor beam. Tractor beam is nice to have, and it looks a little bit like the other one here, so let's spawn a tractor beam there, and then we can spawn a little tractor beam module here. And the tractor beam is a little bit interesting. Using B, you can switch different modes. It can be on hold, now it's on hold. We can switch B, now it's on pull. We can switch B, it's now on push and then hold. So B is the thing you use to basically change the different types of firing modes of weapons in general. Good to know. Alright, this is what half of you have been waiting for. Now it's finally time to look through all the weapons. A useful thing, by the way, M, is the map. Here you can select the map and basically what faction controls what. Might be useful. Okay, weapons. We all waited a long time, but now the QuickFire weapons are out. What do we have? We have cannon, computer, cannon barrel, missile computer, missile tube, damage beam module, and we have something to increase our missile capacity. Then we also have something called mine layer. I think this will change a little bit, so we'll just skip mine laying for now, because the other ones are more useful in my opinion right now. Then we also have something called EM effect computer, heat effect computer, and kinetic effect computer. Cannons do more kinetic damage than anything else. Kinetic damage damages unarmored blocks like thrusters, barrels, system blocks. Cannons kill systems the best. Then we have missile, they do heat damage. Heat damage is most useful for melting armor. So if you see some armor, you can best melt it by some missiles. And then we have damage beam. Damage beam is most useful to take down shields. Electromagnetic damage it's most heavy in. So there we have like the different types. And if you want to tweak your weapons to have a little more of EM, heat or kinetic, dependent on whatever it is, you might increase it here. So I'll select just one randomly here. We select the heat effect because we'll boost our cannon. Okay, let's go with some weapon basics. The main weapon computer can be placed down, and then you select it by C if it's not automatically selected, and then you can build your cannon. I'll make 2 small cannons in the front like this. When I go inside of here, I can go to G, and I see this little cannon, and I can drag it down here, and I can now shoot my cannon. If I go into G menu here, I can also connect it to other weapon computers if we had. To drag a thing to the cannon here, now we don't have anything to drag, but if you do it to the secondary slot, it's the same thing as connect them up manually, which we'll do now. Now, we place a new weapon computer, and we take the first weapon computer by C, and then we connect the second one up by V. If we go into G menu again, you can see that we have it connected here. Fantastic. If we select this one and we add additional cannon barrels, now this is only a support system, so you can place them wherever you like. If you go into G again, you can see we have 50% support, and this will make it shoot faster. If we go in here again and add 2 more, we have 100% support, and we now reach the maximum fire rate. Now, if I wanted to, I can also connect up an effect computer to this setup, wherever really. And then I select the main weapons computer that control our weapon systems there, and I connect up this heat. Then I select the heat system and I add, 2 heat. Now, this weapon will be boosted a little bit against armor, because it now has a little more heat damage than it had before. And I will just go through the different types of weapon combinations very quickly. Cannon, with cannon as support, makes it shoot fire like an autocannon or machine gun. Cannon with missile as support make it a charge cannon that you have to charge up and you then fire a medium range, very heavy shot. And then we have the damage beam as support, which basically makes a sniper cannon. When we're talking about the missile systems, if we have missile by itself, it's a dumbfire missile. If we have damage beam as support, which we will make because it's so useful, we will have a lock-on missile. When we're talking about missiles, I had a wrong block there. I need to drag down this little missile tube, it's called, of course. If you place the barrel in another direction, it won't shoot in another direction. If you want something to shoot in another direction, you'll actually have to take the weapon computer and face it into the direction you want to shoot. Mostly you want to shoot forwards, of course. Now, if we go into this little G menu here, you can see we have this connected up. And we don't need any beam modules to actually make it a heat seeker. Oh, I need to drag it down, of course. No, we can just make it heat seeking by itself. However, it will be faster if we add some beam modules as support. So we just slam down in a random place like that. Now, we don't have any missiles. And how do we have missiles? Well, there is something called missile capacity module. So let's add a bunch of missile capacity modules in this ship. And we now have 2 missiles. Fantastic. We can now fire our seeking missile. And you see it actually remained a lock. And if you face a thing, it will lock on, and after a while it will lose the lock on. Face a new thing, lock on, and then it will be locked, and we can fly around in crazy maneuverings, and we just need to sometimes have our cursors over the target and it will remember what it is. Let's talk a little quick bit about the damage beams. A regular beam with no support is a damage beam, just like that. If you instead have a cannon computer as support, you will have a continuously firing beam that also locks onto the target and tries to hold the target. Basically, it's like it was some kind of optics in the front of the damage beam that kind of automatically focuses to the target and just continues to deal damage if it's basically facing the same direction. Pretty handy. Then if we have a missile as support, like connecting them up like this if you forgot, it would make it a charge up beam that does tremendous amounts of damage but on a very short range and no kind of lock on. If we have a damage beam as a damage beam, we basically have a long range pulse laser. Well, that's basically the basics of weapons, and to save some time you have to play around them a little bit yourself, and I may show you in more detail in future tutorials. Anyways, of course you want to change the color of your weapon, and now I will show you my personal favorite. You can use any glowing block to change the color of the weapons, and because I have a heat increased cannon, which is one of my favorites, I take my cannon and I connect up a lava block. Then we'll get this really cool lava color on our shots, which I enjoy. I like the heat reinforced automatic. And of course, as the engine, we could also connect up our little cute missile to this thing. However, they can't be connected to the same color, so now our thrusters is, vanilla color. Now anyways, we have some really beautiful green missiles flying away like this. Fantastic. Alright, now there is only one little thing I basically want to show you. And this is how to make an anti-missile turret, because if you don't have one, you might get very dead. If you find that this is a little bit advanced, then you could say that you watched the tutorial and check it out some other time. But it's not very hard. And what we do is we have a rail turret. This is a one-axis turret, which is, Then we go to the docking tab and we select create docking. Now we see this little green word thing here, and this is basically where our core will be. Place it down and make sure the arrow points forward by scrolling a lot, like top forward. Fantastic. Then we can spawn it. Aim towards it and click middle mouse button. You're now inside this thing. As we are in this object here, we need to create another axis block. Point it sideways and forwards. Go to the create docking again, and so we select a core. They don't have to be connecting in any way. Make sure it's top forward. Whoops. Fantastic. Then we click middle mouse button on this core again. On this core, we go to the cannon computer. Slap down a cannon computer and a nice little cannon barrel here and there. And then we slap down another cannon computer and have a cannon barrel there and there. Take this first one, connect up this as support, go into your little inventory and find an AI module. Of course, you could have someone live inside this little block and control the turret manually, just sitting inside this core block and just be manual, but that's really hard. So just have Bobby AI somewhere on it. Alright. Okay, now it's a turret. It's a little bit confused. Go in and out of it, and then it's a turret. You can here set if you want it to shoot at low damage missiles, high damage missiles, or just random. High damage missiles have more health and will take longer time to get down, but they are also more dangerous. And then you need to select it to be aim at missiles, and now it's an anti-missile turret. Go out of, everything, be your character basically, and you go to this little block of Bobby AI, and you select active. As you're not inside of this, you can now activate it. There is also a thing that's called remote control, which means you can remotely control your guns from your main cockpit seat if you want to. But this is an anti-missile turret. Alright, and that should now shoot down enemy missiles. Well, that is quite basic, but I think this should help you set up your first ship in StarMade and also understand the changes that were made to weapons and armor and stuff like that. I hope you will tune in for future tutorials as we will make them. We'll keep our eye on StarMade, and we'll get there eventually when the game is ready and go back to some more heavy StarMade stuff. If you're dying to see some StarMade cinematic content, I can really recommend our Little Empires cinematic series that will continue to do when StarMade is a little bit more ready. But it's some really nice videos there, or I put a lot of time in them. Please watch them. Anyways, thanks for watching this little tutorial, and I'll see you in future videos. This is GMODISM, signing out. The GMODISM Industries proudly brings you Bumblebee Personal Transport. The Bumblebee makes the next generation space shuttle and space car. The craft can carry 4 passengers and 1 pilot. The comfortable leather seats make moderate journeys pleasant, and the standard armor frames ensures safety for passengers. The craft utilized strong thruster blast to be able to quickly take off from high gravity planets as well as evade any potential offenders. Bumblebee is a common transportation choice among high officials in Pandora Haven Stellar City. Contact your GMODISM Industries representative today and get your own GI Bumblebee Personal Transport.